This is the Horse Radio Network. This is episode 508 of the Stable Scoop Show. Please support our title sponsor, Wintec Saddles, as they make this show possible. The rest of the scoop is back as Gayle Stewart brings us an original called Singing in the Mines. This is Glenn the Geek, and welcome back. The rest of the scoop is the premier storytelling podcast for the horse world. It's a short 5 to 10 minute story. It's professionally written, and it's about historical horses or horse people, and we kind of tell it in the style of Paul Harvey's The Rest of the Story or Mike Rowe's The Way I Heard It. We have about 30 of them in the can already, and if you missed them, head on over to stablescoop.com or any podcast player and just search for Stable Scoop. They started about episode 482. We also did some upgrading to the website, and we got a new server, which means more of the back episodes of Stable Scoop are there, back to Helena's time. We actually go back 11 years on this show, so you can find more and more of them now on your podcast player, not just the last 20 like we had before. Today, Gayle Stewart, author of 100 Horses in History, writes today's amazing story of something that happened about 120 years ago. It's truly a story of how a pony can change your life forever. Like we didn't know that already. Gayle Stewart's second edition of 100 Horses in History is out now. She added a couple of the recent Triple Crown winners, and you can find it at Barnes & Noble, and it would make a great gift for any horse lover this holiday season. Just search for 100 Horses in History. And speaking of holiday gifts, most of you know that we use Wintec saddles around here at the Horse Radio Network studios in Florida. Well, you'll be excited to learn that the Wintec saddles model clearance is on now, with new models coming out soon. Don't miss out on unbelievable deals across the Wintec range. And they include the 500 All-Purpose, the Wintec Pro Jump, the Wintec Isabel, and the Wintec Pro Endurance, and many, many more, I think most of which Jennifer has in the barn. This is the perfect opportunity to purchase a lightweight, comfortable, and weatherproof saddle from America's favorite synthetic saddle brand. These easy care weatherproof saddles are perfect for riding during the winter, as they can withstand mud and rain and snow and sleet, and you just hose them off to clean them. This exciting offer is only valid while stocks last, so gallop into your nearest Wintec local or online retailer today. Visit wintec-saddles.com for more information on the complete line of Wintec saddles. Singing in the Mines by Gayle Stewart. This is the story of a pit pony. A Shetland pony, to be exact. A Sheltie, one of hundreds who toiled in the coal mines of Scotland in the early 1900s. It was a dirty business, dark, dank, and dangerous. Men of middle age, young men and teenagers worked the mines and risked their lives for a paycheck. Though fraught with danger, the work was steady, and the miners had help and companionship in their toils. Working alongside the miners were strong and steady teamsters. They were ponies, the famous little pit ponies. One of those miners was a teenage Scot named Harry. He was a fellow that was not disposed to bad moods. He loved to sing and sang happily, not knowing that his future held not a life of mining, but one of good fortune known only in his dreams. And his pit pony, a companion in the mines for long hours underground, grew fond of Harry. They enjoyed each other's company, which made their jobs, if not pleasant, at least tolerable, and Harry was always singing in the mines. Everybody liked this pony, Harry remembered, and I loved him. I taught him all sorts of tricks, and verily believed that if I had had him long enough, I could have taught him to speak. And clever he was. He'd sneak quietly into the break room and steal bread and cheese from the miners' jackets. He also helped himself to a flask of tea by placing the flask between his front hooves, and then he'd pull out the cork with his teeth. He'd bite the flask, raise it to his mouth, and drink the tea. When he heard a miner approach, he'd scurry out of the break room like a child caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He also learned to dodge loose coal that might drop down from the roof and land between the harness and his skin, and that, Harry said, would make him very uncomfortable. One day, Harry, his reputation growing for singing in the mines, was working in the coal mine, riding in a little tub, or hutch as they call it in Scotland, behind his faithful pit pony, when without warning the pony halted. "Get on, what you stopping for?" he yelled at the pony, but the pony would not move. He about-faced like a goose-stepping soldier on parade and moved double-quick in the opposite direction with Harry in the hutch in tow. All he did, Harry said, was to turn around sharply, look me in the face with a sorry expression in his eyes. The pony's instinct told him something was wrong. Something disastrous was soon to happen. Seconds later, the roof of the mine crashed in and tons of dirt fell into the very spot where they had just been. I heard the crinkling and creaking, but I was too much interested in our progress to notice the danger. But he stopped in time. His acute ears heard the warning sounds to which humans were unintelligible. When Harry realized what had just happened, he remembered. Tears came to my eyes. I threw my arms around the pony's neck and kissed and cuddled him again and again. In 1914, Harry told the story to a large gathering in Wellington, New Zealand, praising his pony. And that is why I'm here today, through that wise wee boy. And so Harry found fame and fortune as a singer and a comedian, and was knighted by King George V for his fundraising efforts to benefit soldiers returning for World War I. He also campaigned for good homes for retiring pit ponies and good treatment of those still working in the coal mines. Honestly, I was fond of the ponies. I made pals of them. I took pleasure in them, and never met a pit pony yet that I could not manage better by kindness than by blows. In 1911, Harry, known today as Sir Henry Lauder, beseeched British politician Winston Churchill to support the Coal Mines Act in the House of Commons, which included strict regulations to protect the pit ponies. He convinced Mrs. Clementine Churchill to plead the cause to her husband. And the act, after passage in the House of Lords, was enacted, including the Pony Protecting Clause. He never forgot his wee four-footed friends of the mine, or the pony who saved both their lives, the little fellow whose name reflected the finest qualities of a leader, intelligence, courage, and discernment, knowing when to break the rules for the greater good. And so, they called him Captain. I had to look Harry up to find out a little more about him, and what I found out was in 1911, Lauder had become the highest paid performer in the world, and was the first British artist to sell 1 million records, and by 1928, he sold double that. He raised vast amounts of money for the war effort during the First World War, and that's when he was knighted. He also went into semi-retirement in the 1930s, but briefly emerged to entertain troops in the Second World War. By the late 1940s, he was suffering from long periods of ill health, and he died in Scotland in 1950. And I dug this up, and believe it or not, there's still records from the time, very early records. Here's a little bit of him singing, and this was recorded in 1908 with a song called She's My Daisy.
On the shore, I said goodbye, love, I'm off to Baltimore, and I kissed her on the ship, and the crew began to roar. Hill-a-ho, hill-a-ho, and we parted on the shore.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that story from Gayle Stewart. I thought it was a lot of fun. You can learn a lot more about Harry, or as he's known, Sir Henry Lauder, online. He was a very interesting character and apparently very, very well respected in his day. Did you know you can get the HRN app on iOS or Android? Just search for Horse Radio Network in the App Store. It's free and it's super easy to use. And we want to thank this week's sponsor, Wintec. That's it for this time. Until the next time, happy scooping.